scorching, dust-choked canyons of Mercury, far from the screams of dying soldiers and the thunder of orbital bombardment, dwelled Elias. He was Elias, the Mercurian, though few outside his small, isolated research collective knew him by that name. He bore no military rank, commanded no fleet, and held no political sway in the chaotic vacuum left by Emperor Troy III's death. While the solar system descended into a maelstrom of betrayal and bloodshed, Elias remained stubbornly anchored to the past. His world was one of crumbling ruins, forgotten languages etched into ancient stone, and the tantalizing whispers of civilizations lost to the eons. The war was a distant, unpleasant static on his comms, a vulgar interruption to the profound silence of his digs. Unlike the power-hungry generals and ambitious nobles tearing apart the system, Elias sought a different kind of power, the power of knowledge. He believed the answers to the present's madness lay buried beneath the sun-baked crust of Mercury, a planet known for its volatile extremes, but also its incredible archaeological wealth. Mercury, in its relentless orbit, had witnessed epochs of history that the younger, more volatile planets could only imagine. It was a graveyard of empires, a repository of technologies so advanced they had been mistaken for magic before fading into myth. Elias dedicated his life to sifting through this cosmic detritus. He wasn't interested in glory or conquest. The cutthroat politics and savage battles that consumed Kalen, Varkas, and the others seemed utterly pointless to him. Why fight over a broken present when the keys to unimaginable futures or devastating pasts lay waiting to be unearthed? His days were spent meticulously excavating sites that had been sealed for millennia, cataloging artifacts, and poring over cryptic texts. He was a scholar, yes, but one driven by a singular, almost obsessive focus on the practical applications of ancient discovery, particularly anything related to energy, defense, or most compellingly, weaponry. The concept of ancient weapons held a particular fascination. Not the primitive slug throwers or plasma cannons of the current age, but devices rumored to harness fundamental forces of the universe, capable of reshaping reality or ending it with equal ease. Such relics were the stuff of legend, dismissed by most as fanciful tales. But Elias knew better. His research had yielded tantalizing clues, fragmented schematics, and linguistic keys that pointed to a truth far stranger and more powerful than the solar system's current inhabitants could comprehend. The ancients had possessed capabilities that dwarfed contemporary military might. He worked in a bubble of focused intensity, his small team loyal but often bewildered by his single-mindedness. They understood the academic value, the historical significance, but they couldn't grasp the urgency that propelled Elias. The sense that what he sought was not just history, but a potential force that could either save or utterly destroy everything. While warships clashed in the void and cities burned on distant worlds, Elias tracked seismic anomalies, deciphered dead languages, and pieced together the puzzle of a forgotten era. He was the quiet eye in the center of the storm, an enigma whose true purpose and potential impact remained hidden even from himself at times. Mercury was less a planet and more a crucible, forged in the sun's relentless glare. Its surface was a cracked, baking expanse of iron and silicate, where the sunward face reached temperatures capable of melting lead, and the shadowed side plummeted into a frigid, airless abyss. Radiation poured down in an unceasing flood, scouring the landscape, making unprotected surface travel a swift, agonizing death. Yet beneath that brutal, sun-blasted crust lay a different world. Vast underground cities, carved out by long-vanished civilizations, or perhaps the planet's own early, desperate inhabit, ants, offered refuge from the celestial furnace. These subterranean networks, labyrinthine and ancient, were whispered to hold secrets buried deeper than any modern probe had dared to venture. The surface itself was a treacherous, dynamic entity. Seismic tremors, fueled by tidal forces and internal stresses, constantly reshaped the terrain, opening fissures that swallowed exploration teams or collapsing tunnels with terrifying suddenness. Solar flares, unpredictable and devastating, could fry unprotected electronics and deliver lethal doses of radiation in moments. Despite the inherent dangers, Mercury was a magnet for those seeking power or knowledge. The legends persisted, tales of forgotten technologies, weapons of unimaginable power, or artifacts that could rewrite the known history of the solar system. These weren't just myths. Fragmented data caches and tantalizing archaeological scraps hinted at their reality. Exploring Mercury was a gamble few were willing to take, and fewer still survived. Specialized suits, radiation shielding, and precise timing were essential. But even then, the planet seemed to actively resist intrusion. Equipment malfunctioned without warning. Navigation systems went haywire near ancient energy signatures, and the sheer psychological toll of the isolation could break even the most hardened explorer. The ruins themselves were often found in the twilight zones, the narrow band between scorching light and freezing darkness, or deep within volcanic tubes and lava plains. They were silent, monumental testaments to a past shrouded in mystery, their architecture alien and their purpose long forgotten. Every discovered relic, every cryptic inscription, fueled the obsession of historians and opportunists alike. The potential rewards were immense. A power source unlike any other, a weapon capable of leveling continents, or insight into the very fabric of reality. It was a treasure trove, guarded by the planet's own deadly embrace. The sheer scale of the planet's potential felt overwhelming. If even a fraction of the legends were true, Mercury held the keys to altering the balance of power, not just in the current civil war, but for millennia to come. It was a sleeping giant, its dreams filled with forgotten might. Those who sought Mercury's secrets often did so in solitude, or with small, tightly knit crews bound by desperation or a shared, dangerous ambition. Trust was a luxury. The planet's harshness bred paranoia, and the value of its potential discoveries made betrayal a constant, looming threat. Mercury was a paradox, a barren, lifeless rock on the outside, a teeming, dangerous repository of history and power within. It was a graveyard for the unprepared, and a potential forge for the future, waiting for someone with the knowledge and the courage, or perhaps the recklessness, to claim its hidden legacy. Deep within the scorching crust of Mercury, far beneath the searing glare of the sun and the ceaseless quakes that rattled the surface, Elias meticulously brushed dust from an ancient console. Weeks had blurred into a single, relentless cycle of heat, dust, and silence, broken only by the hum of his life support and the faint, rhythmic thrumming from deeper within the forgotten complex. He wasn't searching for artifacts to display in a museum. His quest was for knowledge, for the echoes of a civilization that had mastered forces that the current solar system only dreamed of. This level of the ruin, buried under millennia of tectonic shift and solar radiation, spoke of something far grander and far more terrifying than anything he had encountered before. The architecture wasn't just robust, it felt anchored, drawing strength from the very core of the planet. Hieroglyphs, unlike any he had cataloged, pulsed with a faint internal light as his scanning beam passed over them, their intricate patterns hinting at energies he couldn't yet comprehend. Then he found it. Not a single device, but a nexus, a conver, Gent's point of conduits and crystalline structures radiating from a central chamber. It was hidden behind a seemingly solid wall, revealed only when his high-frequency sonic scanner detected a hollow space vibrating with a harmonic resonance that shouldn't exist naturally. It took hours of delicate work, bypassing ancient security protocols that felt less like locks and more like philosophical riddles, to gain entry. The chamber was immense, a cavern carved not by nature, but by unimaginable power. At its heart lay a colossal inert machine, a lattice of exotic metals and glowing, suspended crystals. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense, no barrels or missile bays. It was a system, integrated with the planet's own geological and energetic flows. As Elias activated a diagnostic sequence, the crystals flared and the low thrumming he'd felt earlier intensified, vibrating through the rock beneath his feet. Data flooded his datapad, schematics that defied modern physics, energy signatures that mirrored solar flares but were contained and directed. He ran simulations based on the recovered operational logs. The results were staggering, horrifying. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a planetary-scale amplifier, capable of harnessing Mercury's internal energies and focusing them into a beam, a wave, or a localized distortion field of unimaginable destructive force. One simulation showed a single, focused blast capable of cracking a moon. Another depicted a wider pulse that could render an entire planetary surface uninhabitable, boiling oceans and melting continents. The sheer scale of the power, The casual way the ancient logs discussed manipulating geological forces sent a chill through him that no Mercurian heat shield could deflect. This was the kind of power that birthed gods or destroyed worlds. His hands trembled as he scrolled through the data, the weight of the discovery pressing down on him like a collapsing star. This wasn't just a historical find, it was a live wire. A dormant titan waiting to be awakened in a solar system already tearing itself apart. The war raging above, the brutal power struggles between Kalen, Varkas, Kino, and the others felt suddenly insignificant compared to the force now at his fingertips. He thought of the ongoing slaughter, the cities burning, the lives extinguished in the name of ambition. This weapon could end the war. Yes, a single demonstration might force every faction to their knees. It could protect Mercury absolutely, making it untouchable. But the cost, the potential for misuse, for accidental catastrophe, or for falling into the wrong hands, was a nightmare he could barely contemplate. His deeply held pacifist beliefs screamed in protest. He had always sought knowledge to understand, to preserve, not to empower destruction. Yet the cold, brutal reality of the Civil War gnawed at him. Could he simply bury this secret again, knowing the endless bloodshed would continue? Or did he have a responsibility to wield this terrible power, to become the very thing he loathed, for the sake of a fragile, brutal peace? The hum of the ancient system filled the chamber, a low, expectant growl. Elias stared at the glowing crystals, the data on his pad a blueprint for Armageddon. The future of the solar system, the lives of billions, now hinged on the impossible choice facing a quiet historian in a forgotten tomb beneath the surface of Mercury. The secret weapon was found, and the true conflict, the one within his own soul, had just begun. Elias the Mercurian stood amidst the dust-choked remnants of a forgotten age, his hands tracing the intricate, alien script carved into a wall that had endured millennia under the sun's relentless glare. The cacophony of war that tore at the outer planets felt distant, a savage storm contained by light years of vacuum and the scorching heat of Mercury's surface. Here, in the silence of the deep ruins, only the whisper of history mattered. His life had always been one of quiet contemplation, dedicated to unearthing the echoes of civilizations long turned to dust. The brutal dance of power, the clatter of arms, the screams of the dying, these were not merely repugnant to Elias. They were the antithesis of everything he believed. Violence was not a solution, but a disease, a cyclical madness that consumed empires and left only ruin in its wake. He had seen the patterns in the archaeological record, the rise and fall fueled by endless conflict. Every artifact, every shattered city block, screamed a silent testament to the futility of force. His pacifism wasn't merely a philosophical stance, it was a conclusion drawn from empirical evidence, etched into the very bedrock of the dead worlds he studied. Then came the discovery. Not another broken tool or ceremonial relic, but it. The ancient weapon, a relic of power so immense it made modern armaments seem like child's toys. It lay dormant, a sleeping giant beneath the sands, capable of rewriting the very fabric of reality, or perhaps of simply ending it. His first reaction wasn't awe, but a profound gut-wrenching fear. This wasn't a key to understanding the past. It was a potential catalyst for destroying the future. The brutal, messy war raging across the solar system now felt terrifyingly close, its shadow stretching even to his isolated world. The whispers had already begun, carried on encrypted channels and desperate pleas for aid. Factions, sensing the shift in power, were reaching out, their words cloaked in promises of justice and peace, but underscored by an insatiable hunger for the weapon's might. They saw a tool. Elias saw a catastrophe waiting to happen. He recoiled from their offers, from the very idea of becoming entangled in the bloodshed. His hands, calloused from delicate excavation, were meant for uncovering truth, not unleashing destruction. The thought of this ancient power being wielded by any of the ruthless generals or desperate rebels filled him with a chilling dread. His duty, as he saw it, was not to arm one side against another, but to understand this power, perhaps even to neutralize it. To reveal it to the warring factions would be like handing a match to children playing in a field of dry tinder. The potential for ending the war was dwarfed by the near certainty of unimaginable devastation. The pressure mounted daily. Messages became more insistent, veiled threats replacing polite inquiries. Elias felt the walls closing in, the peaceful solitude of his ruins threatened by the encroaching tide of violence. He was a scholar, a historian, not a combatant, and the role being thrust upon him felt like a cruel cosmic joke. He clutched the data slate containing the weapon's schematics, the cool metal, a stark contrast to the burning turmoil in his gut. To share this was to condemn countless lives. To keep it hidden was to risk its discovery by less scrupulous hands, or worse, to allow the war to continue its brutal, grinding pace. Neither option offered solace, only varying degrees of horror. Mercury, his sanctuary, suddenly felt less like a haven and more like a cage. The sun, usually a benign observer of his work, now seemed to beat down with the heat of the distant conflict, a constant reminder of the inferno he desperately wished to avoid. His pacifist convictions, once a quiet strength, now felt like a fragile shield against an incoming barrage of demands and threats. He was Elias the Mercurian, historian of the dead, and he wanted nothing more than to be left alone with his ghosts and his discoveries, far from the blood and ambition that stained the stars. Elias, hunched over flickering data slates in the suffocating heat of a deep Mercurian archive, understood the war raging above him not just as a conflict of armies and ambitions, but as a symptom of a rot that had festered for millennia, buried beneath layers of curated history and convenient lies. While generals plotted on Star Cha, RTS and fleets tore through the void, Elias delved into the bedrock of time, seeking the origin of the disease. His work wasn't merely academic. It was a desperate search for a cure, or perhaps the ultimate weapon. His recent discovery, the ancient power source humming in the chamber just beyond his study, was merely one piece of a far larger, more terrifying puzzle. It was a key, not just to forgotten technology, but to a truth about the solar system's past that had been meticulously erased, a truth that could dismantle the very foundations upon which the current power structures were built. This wasn't the simple narrative of a fallen emperor and squabbling heirs taught in the academies. Elias was uncovering evidence of a previous, unimaginably advanced civilization, one that had risen and catastrophically fallen right here, within these sun-baked orbits. Their rise, their power, and their eventual, brutal end held warnings, but also offered insights into energies and forces the current inhabitants of the solar system barely understood. His position was unique, utterly separate from the bloody field of battle. No general, no politician, no rebel leader possessed the patience, the access, or the specific knowledge required to piece together the fragmented remnants of this lost era. They were too consumed with the present, too blinded by the immediate struggle for power. Elias, the quiet historian on the fringes, held the only light capable of illuminating the true darkness at the heart of the solar system's history. He saw how the echoes of this ancient collapse resonated in the present conflict. The same unchecked ambition, the same disregard for life, the same relentless pursuit of power that had seemingly consumed their predecessors. His discoveries weren't just about a powerful weapon, they were about a cyclical pattern of destruction, a grim prophecy unfolding once more. The weight of this knowledge pressed down on him, heavier than the crushing gravity of Jupiter. He, the pacifist scholar, was now burdened with information that could either end the war by exposing the futility and false premises of the fight, or, more likely, provide a new, devastating tool for one side to achieve absolute dominion, unleashing the cycle of destruction anew on an even grander scale. He pictured Kalen's desperate fight, Anya's humanitarian struggle, Varkos's brutal conquest, and felt a profound, cold dread. How could he introduce a truth so volatile, so disruptive into a system already teetering on the brink of total annihilation? His archives, once a sanctuary of quiet contemplation, had become a powder keg, and he held the match. Every newly deciphered tablet, every recovered artifact, every hum of the ancient machinery he reactivated brought him closer to a complete understanding of the solar system's hidden history. And with that understanding came the terrifying realization that the current war was merely a skirmish compared to the forces that had once been unleashed, forces he was now on the verge of reawakening. His reluctance to engage in the war wasn't just philosophical. It was born of a deep, scholarly appreciation for the sheer destructive capacity of unchecked power, witnessed through the ruins he excavated daily. He knew, with chilling certainty, that the secrets he held were not just keys to victory, but potentially keys to oblivion. Thus, Elias the Mercurian was not just a historian, nor merely the discoverer of a powerful weapon. He was the guardian of a buried truth, a silent, conflicted figure on the sun-scorched surface of Mercury, uniquely positioned to either guide the solar system towards an unimaginable future or condemn it to repeat the most horrific chapter of its forgotten past. His decision, when it came, would reshape the stars.